thank you all for coming. We're all part of this together. And we certainly are cosmopolitan in the area that we live and we serve. So you all have examples of that. And we have very special outreaches. I have people on my team, Kimberly has people on her team. And we outreach to people that maybe their language skills are different than ours and their religious protocols are different. And we kind of picked food as a window today because it's a major portion of a lot of cultures. I go to the postal factory in Jenkintown to mail packages to my grandchildren in Denver, and there's a very nice young man that has joined our group, and his name is Askay Patel. He's from India. So I said to him that I was going to be giving this talk, and I said, do you have a recipe? Is there something that your mom has made that you think is so good? And he said, well, I'm a vegetarian. But he said, I'll share with you a recipe that's one of my favorites. And basic is cabbage. And they are really talking about cabbage now as, you know, along with the antioxidants, our dark leafy green vegetables that we're all supposed to be doing. I've had Indian friends. I've never had a curry dish that was made with cabbage. Okay, then you're going to relate to it. What he said the ingredients were, he said it was a stir fry. He said he put some oil, a little mustard seed, cumin seed, turmeric powder, cut the cabbage up smaller, and some salt. He said no onion and no garlic. And then some cumin powder, and then of course you know what I put in parentheses, chili powder. So, and he said you can add cooked potatoes to that. Now, the province from India that he's from is Gujarat, so I'm not quite sure where that is. India's a pretty massive country, so is Africa. So, but right away when you think of these spices, if you've ever had anything similar to it, then you relate, you remember. We do remember color, we do remember taste, flavor of something, even from years ago. So I had asked Hassad, because she was born and raised in Africa, to share something with us about her experience with cooking. So welcome and thank you.
I didn't know I was the one to start first.
Well, here we are.
My name is Hafsat Yusuf, and I just started working with Claudia or with the agency, which I really enjoyed doing. Actually, I was born in Africa, and I came here 20 years ago. Since then, I've been traveling. Like I stay here 9 months, and I stay there 3 months. So with my family, I have my children here. We don't eat outside. All the time we eat our own food. Usually, if any one of us travels home, we get what we want from there, because not everything we can get from here. So our major food is rice. Rice and cornmeal. So usually we eat a lot of vegetables and fruits. In the morning, our breakfast is fruits. We use dates, we use oranges, bananas. Even though we don't have strawberries over there back home and blueberries, but over here, I normally get them in the store and then I introduce it to us. And then we don't have broccoli, but I introduce broccoli to us because I heard that is very useful to us. So that's what we usually eat. If we must eat outside, we have to go to the buffet. Where is Chinese food? Normally there are some kind of similar food to what we eat. So and we cook every day. Like every single day we have to cook new food. Most of the time what we cook and leave in the refrigerator or freezer is beans, red beans. We use red beans and then we cook red beans, like we put some spices inside and then we store it in the freezer because that one is very hard to cook. So in order for us to get what we want on time, we have to cook what we know is going to be very strong. At the same time, we eat chicken, but the chicken we eat, we call it hard chicken. There is a place they sell hard chicken. I don't know what kind of food they give it to it. It takes like 15 or 20 minutes in, what is it called?
Microwave?
No, not microwave.
No.
On the fry pan, no?
No.
It's a,
Why should I forget it?
you know when you put it in the.
Not steamer. Pressure cooker.
Pressure
Oh,
cooker.
Yeah, so we put it in a pressure cooker for at least 15 or 20 minutes so that it will be soft. But at the same time, sometimes we have to keep it up to 30 minutes. So if we want to eat chicken, it takes a lot of time for us to cook it. We usually put onions, salt in it, and then there is some kind of spices we put on it and cook it together. So we eat a lot of spices. Usually, there is a spicy, lucky that I have it here,
Why do you cook the chicken so long?
because it's very hard.
It's a tough
It's
chicken.
not a soft chicken.
It's a tough.
It's very hard. I wish I was able, I would have done something.
No, 'cause I know.
This is a spicy that we normally, anywhere I go with my spicy. If there is any food I know I want to eat, this is not the original,
That's not the
no.
origin.
no, this is for curry. I just poured it inside.
Pasta,
So,
what's in it?
What's the name of that?
spice in-
well, can I put it in a plate? So
Sure.
that's,
Flour.
So, most of what is here is ginger. It's okay if you feel you can test it. There is nothing bad in testing it if you want to, but you can hear the smell of it coming out. Yeah, you can, let me put my hand on. It's very, very spicy. So I don't want you to.
What part of Africa are you from?
Nigeria, and I'm from the north,
Okay.
northern part of Nigeria.
This kind of,
Sure. This is not the original.
No, I know what.
this kind of reminds me about Indian, they call garam masala. They kind of make their own mix. Each family kind of has what they think is
Every
best.
year I go, I have to bring tons and
No, I
tons
know.
of it. Sometimes I have to sneak because of the regulation, and take it away.
Okay,
I know
okay.
what it is, that's why I said, but it's not the
Yeah.
yellow, it's not the yellow one.
No, it's
Yeah,
not.
it's
This
not-
one
yeah.
is this. I used it, so I use the
No, I
container.
know,
It's
I know,
kind of
I know
similar,
what it is.
isn't
I can taste that on the chicken.
Yeah, oh, you know what, that's very tasty. I mean, 'cause
Do you
so-
blend it yourself or does it come
No,
blended?
there are so many things that we put together,
Right.
and then we grind it. We have a special machine that can grind it. Mostly is ginger, dried ginger.
Right.
So we put everything and the spicy in it, and then we just ground it together. So anytime we want to eat, whether it's cooked or not cooked, we use this. We put it on it to give it more taste. Yes. So me and my family, we always make that kind of chicken or anything that we'll be able to eat in the house. Usually I have my niece, who she is not working yet, she is still in the house. So she cook anything that sometimes she will ask, what is she going to cook? But sometimes she is not going to ask, she will use her own ideas and just put everything on table, and she knows that she knows what I like best. So she will do it, or sometimes she will just do whatever she feels she can do. But most of the things we use is not from here. We have to bring it from home. But our main food is fruit and vegetable, and exercise.
Okay, let us compliment you on your outfit, it's beautiful. Thank you especially for sharing that with us as well.
My outfit is like every year I go home again. The only thing they give to me as a gift
Yes.
is for them to sew some kind of clothes for me. Like my nieces, my nephews, and then I have 2 of my other kids back home. So every time I go home, they have something new to give to me.
Beautiful.
But myself, when I'm leaving, I take the old ones and then take it back and give it out because I don't think somebody here will use it. So many a times I go home, I have something new to bring it. And my mom always warned me, you are going to America, don't ever change your culture.
Okay, thank you, Hassan. That was, I very much appreciated that, I thought it was excellent.
Absolutely.
So, does anyone else have something that they would like to share from their own childhood? About something that their mother or their grandma made that they feel represents something from their own background? I mean, Charmaine, were you from Haiti? And
Jamaica.
Jamaica, okay, because I know Pam is from Jamaica. So, were there any similarities from what
The curry
Hassan
that
was
she-
saying?
The curry that she used,
Yes.
we know what type it is.
Okay,
And now she's doing it, but it's not the yellow one, so.
there's some variation,
Yes.
you're used to something a little.
Yeah.
So, the one that you use,
No, it's the same thing with the ginger and the same thing.
okay, so
Spices,
what
yes.
makes the color different?
The mustard seed,
Yes.
make it yellow.
It's not the
Okay.
turmeric? I thought it was the turmeric.
No, like a lot of different stuff.
Okay, because, yeah, but you see, this was the first time, Janelle, that I had heard mustard seed.
Right, me too.
Yeah, because all my Indian friends, that mustard seed never came up. The cumin, the coriander, the ginger, yes,
That's
but
spices.
not, you know,
You talking about this?
so,
And they have pimento.
You can open it. It's like I'm walking around with everything.
That goes back to the sensitivity.
Like
that I
this
was
one,
talking about,
yeah,
like how you
anytime
just
I have
ask.
cough,
yes.
if the
And
cough
you
is
see how it got
severe,
quiet?
I just take 2 and put it in my
Well,
mouth.
speaking on my own behalf.
Yeah, we got that.
Okay, I want to give Janelle the floor. You know, when we have too many people talking at one time, then it's not going to come up well on the tape. Yeah, so Janelle, you did, you had an important point.
What I was saying, that it's a sensitive topic for most, because some people actually don't have a culture, and that's something that I realized. And it's sad when you realize you don't have a culture. So when you just ask, do anybody have anything from their childhood, and it's just like, I'm waiting for anybody, because I know I don't. Because
Okay.
in all honesty, like, I don't have a cultural background. I have subcultures,
Yeah,
but no cultural background.
yeah, but that's important, because I'm such a minestrone soup. I'm such a combination, you know,
Right,
that I can
right.
talk about what the Pennsylvania Dutch side did and what the
Right.
other things did. But sometimes there's something that sticks in your mind that a grandparent shared with you, that is part of your family culture. Because I don't know that culture is such a specific thing that we have to think about, it being a different part of the world.
Well, it is. The culture is basically a belief system, a group of
Okay.
people that believe in the same thing. Their food, like for Chinese and Japanese, art is big, whether it
Yeah.
be, what was it, music and poetry,
Yes?
you know, builds their culture.
Yeah,
And like for me, it's like, okay, I'll claim hip hop. I was born and raised in the 80s. So that's the only culture I feel like I have claims.
No, you have a culture, but probably your family them didn't talk about it. Do you understand what I'm saying? Everybody have a culture, but, all right, when we was growing up, don't care, when we do family, you know, when you have family, your family come together, whether, we always on a Sunday, don't care how far we live, we grew up in like our grandparents, and they sit down and tell you story. That story is like from back, their family passed on to them. So when they talk about it, they pass it on to us. So it's us to pass it on to our kids. So you do have it, but probably you didn't have somebody to talk about it. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
so if
in
you
a
have-
sense.
Wait, if you ask your mom, because a lot of people don't like to talk about it. Do you understand? All right, when you went
Okay,
back.
all right, let me stop you right there,
Go.
let me make you understand real quick. I have no parents, I am the next generation, so we started our own traditions for
Okay.
our next generation.
Okay.
Because we weren't raised together. We
Okay.
found each other as children, my sister and I anyway, and together we took and raised our kids and our brother's kids. So together it was like 9 kids, and now they're having kids. So we started our own thing because we don't have a history together
Okay.
to share.
I
But
think
you know,
what
which is interesting about that is though, but this is American culture. What you're describing is people from other countries look and say, Americans definitely have a culture. We don't feel because we're living there,
Right.
but that is part of American culture, what you just said. I mean, even my lineage, my parents were immigrant children. My grandparents were immigrants like most people in America. And then they were orphans. They were on their own, so they created their own family, and we had to track any culture prior to them,
Right.
but it became part of the American culture, is what we grew up in. You know, it's interesting.
Yeah,
I think
that's
what,
vast. When you just do American, like, it's very vast. When you see other people that have, like you said, your family were immigrants, so I'm sure they had a base culture that everybody kind of like stuck to. And then once you come to America, we all get Americanized
Right,
and it
it's
goes
hard
out
to
the door.
trace, because
Yes.
they were orphans, so it's hard to
Exactly.
trace that culture. And we can now look back at it somewhat, but growing up, we really just kind of knew the whole culture of America in this century.
Right.
Like you brought up art, which is very interesting, but I mean, America was the forefronter in modern art in the last century. So there's a lot of American culture, like you said, hip hop. That's gonna become part of American culture for the history books. You know, it's interesting.
If you want to learn about your culture, leave this country
Right.
for a couple of years, then you know you have a culture. Things you take for granted,
Yeah.
that's part of the culture, good, bad, or otherwise.
that's a very important point,
Yep.
you know, that you made. I think we need to work on applications for the work that we do as an outreach, because our mission is to help people stay in their own apartment or home, and you're all part of the mission. And you certainly are working with patients, clients that have some different cultures or different ideas. And our sensitivity, I know that sometimes if something is radically different, you're not always positive, you know, when you're approached or asked a question. I think as caregivers in our role, I think that asking polite questions, you know, not trying to put somebody on the spot, but seeing if we can draw out if they have a preference as to how we should fix their food. And Charmaine has been very good with this with one particular gentleman that's very fussy. And I think it's an excellent idea, that if you're not sure, to ask. Because if you were in Hassan's household, you know, then they would say, well, we really need this spice used. And it would be wrong to try to fix the food and say, well, I don't like that, or I'm not used to using that. So I think it is good for us to be open, you know, because I think it's interesting. I think we learn from it. Because I know with our Ukrainian heritage and the Polish with, you know, Irina, cabbage, absolutely positively.
Pierogies, borscht.
See?
We very close to the Jewish food
Okay.
too, to the Polish, and even I have a, you know, so like a Jewish people. It's very easy for me, and even I have it from Haiti. I'm so like to, you know, somebody, you know, like my patient teach me like plantains and fried. I enjoy it.
Fried or oven?
Oh, yeah.
Because they do, you can do both.
With fried,
You fry it too, and some
Yeah,
people
I
do
never
it
had
oven.
it. I never heard of
Oh,
that.
yeah, you can do it in the oven, no oil, let's put it in the oven, a little bit of oven.
Not on the oven, we do it on the charcoal too.
Oh, okay.
We make
The
the charcoal and
plantain.
plantain,
Oh,
but we
no.
want the right one, the
Yes,
one that
not
is
the green
well
one.
right. The green one is not like, it's not going to have any taste.
No,
It
no seed.
doesn't.
No, but if you fry it, you gotta crush it, put a little
Yeah,
salt
I take a
on it,
can.
and then read it.
Okay, well, this is opening up an awful lot of kind of,
Right.
so maybe what we really ought to plan is for kind of a little bit of a smorgasbord
Absolutely,
lunch, and
yes.
everybody could bring their favorite thing. But I'm gonna go back to Elizabeth, because I think you brought a very important point. But I also have to say I'm curious about your own background, because you were born in Switzerland, so you were really representing a very old European culture. I have some things, from French and things like that. We think of Julia Child. What was your experience
In what way?
in growing up with the foods that were prepared, or how they were prepared? What you enjoyed or served?
Well, that changes, every culture changes. And Switzerland is a small country. Pennsylvania is about 3.5 times bigger than Switzerland. And little Switzerland is known for the mountains, the banks, and not necessarily the food.
Okay,
Not necessarily the food.
okay.
It's, when I grew up, it was a lot of potatoes. That has changed. More meat than today. And what always was important was fresh food. You went shopping in the morning, food shopping, and you started to cook fresh, fresh, fresh. And I grew up countryside, and everything, salad, vegetables, everything came out of the garden, everything. So we didn't use fancy terms. It was just healthy food, healthy and fresh food. And that's still the case today. And there is more emphasis on healthy eating, not overeating, healthy eating, balanced eating.
I'm thinking about presentation. We opened a new lady, and as soon as I walked into her little apartment at Redeemer Village, I just was impressed. Everything was dainty and fresh doilies, nothing plastic, lovely lace little tablecloth. And so to me, I wasn't at all shocked to know that she was Bavarian. In my mind, I associated the presentation, the way her table was presented. And I didn't want to be rude, so of course I didn't open up her closets and look at her china. But those are things that I relate more to a European culture, fancy china. But the fact of the matter is, if you're talking about Chinese people, when I was in Manhattan, I used to love to go to the Chinese grocery. It had so many different things, but it also had hand-painted dinner plates, which I still prize to this day because they were all hand-painted. A lot of hours of work that somebody wasn't necessarily paid for, but they're special to me. So I think that's one other thing that we do need to be a little sensitive to as to how we serve something. And I always think it's better with dignity and keeping things clean, no matter what culture a person is from. But very definitely, we have a role that we're going to be happier working with people, if we can find a common ground with them and respect what they're coming from. And it can be quite interesting to learn some of their customs or talk to them. So I enjoy this sharing time. Many of you have difficulties. I mean, it's not so easy to pay bills and keep food on the table, and the grocery bills are mounting. I well remember my mother growing up, and she had 4 bags of groceries to feed our family, and it was $20. And if something changed with a penny or something, she really was upset. And we never went hungry, but what do you get for $20 today?
You
And
know,
if you want your fresh strawberries and blueberries even when they're in season, so we're
Miss
trying.
Claudia, I'm just smiling. When I came here newly, I went to the store to go get some spicy. So they told me just the pack is $5. And then I take out my calculator and calculate $5. I change it to my country's money and I say, this is too much. So I call my sister, I'm like, no, they just told me that such and such is $5. She said, then what are you going to do? Go ahead and buy. I said, no, it's too much. She said, what you can do, take the pot, put the $5 inside and cook it and eat. If you can't buy that spicy for $5, I want you to cook it in the pot and eat.
when you was coming from your country, you didn't bring up any spice for
I did not bring any spicy with me. I just came like that.
Because every time I go back home, we will bring spice.
No, that was my first time to come here. That was like 20 years ago.
No, I bring spice.
Well,
now you know.
Bring your own
I don't have experience coming here and I wasn't ready like I'm coming to stay.
When you go back,
Yeah.
you bring it now?
No, every year.
You go back, you bring, yeah.
Mine
Because
too.
the spices is so fresh and
Every
the smell is like totally different from the spices here. Yes. So,
Well, Charlene, you may be changing that because, WHYY, the TV programs, there's an Andrew Arachi, he's talking about all different spots here in
yeah,
Philadelphia.
they do have it.
And so I really think, and I had picked up this little book at the Postal Factory, because of course I have grandchildren, but it really did. We do now have food trucks all over the place, and they are really selling very specific types of food. So, and I think it's kind of fun to maybe try it, expose yourself to something that might be, a little bit different. My mother-in-law, she's in a nursing home now, but when I first met her, her mother always made homemade pasta, so I'm awful sorry I missed that. Because whenever once in a while in a restaurant or something, you get something homemade like that, fresh. The texture and everything is just, and with any fresh food, you're making fresh rice, you're making fresh food, it's always better. So we're going to just hit some key points so that when we're dealing with people with a different culture, listening is the key. Not trying to just tell them exactly what we're going to do, but rather listen to what they're saying and see how we can work with it. Open your body language. I know that we can say a lot with our faces and with our hands. And then it kind of closes the door instead of opening it. Take an interest in learning, just like Janelle said. Because with a few questions, we might really open a window for ourselves and have a much better time of service with that particular client. Does anybody else have anything to share on the subject?
Like you said, ask.
Yeah.
A lot of them would gladly tell you how to prepare their stuff if they recall it, because that's what I do. I will ask them. If you tell me to cook a dish, I don't know, for instance, when they used to say over easy or 2 sunny side up eggs, I said, he's looking at you. That means I understand that the eggs need not to cover. So it's a joke, no joke. And over easy is like put the pot cover over it, and that's all right. With the food, I just make up where they understand me and I understand them. So I just make it fun. So, of course,
But
I never know all of
not
that.
just with food, even with attitude.
Yes.
Because some of them, like the convent was a place for me that kind of bothered me, and I had this one. She would always demandingly ask something. She would say thank you afterward, but I asked her one time because it was get under my skin, and I'm like, why do you speak that way? Like, why you don't say, can you please do something? She says, I just find it easier to say thank you than it is to say please. I understood that, works for me. But all you gotta do is just open.
No, but that's true, you know,
It's different.
you know.
Some women are forceful, depending on their background, their cultural
I think on
background.
the job that they used to
Yeah,
have.
and it's like, you have to understand, that's just how they are. It's nothing personal
No,
towards
like you said, from once you get an understanding of it, then it's not a problem.
Mhm.
But you have to talk to them to get where they're coming from.
Exactly.
If you're not talking to them, you don't know where they're coming from.
Mhm.
And that's it.
And that is true. So along with food, we have money, how people handle their money. And we have medicine, how they cure their illness. Because many of the cultures definitely have herbal teas and homeopathic medicine. I mean, I think the Chinese totally invented it thousands of years ago. And some of it can be profitable, some of it we can, can learn from. So it isn't just food.
No. Since I came to this country, like 20 years ago, I have never been to the hospital except for physical. I always go for physical every year because it demands my job. Other than that, never ever been to anywhere. Because supposing I have my main sickness is catching cold, like cold. So I have this in my bag every time. If I have a serious cough, like I cannot talk or I started trying to see if I can throw up because some cough can hold your throat. Like last week I have sore throat all week. So what I did was to take 2 of these, put it in my mouth. Sometimes I sleep with it in my mouth. So I make the saliva to soften it. Then I chew it and swallow it. Yeah, I can
Those are
do
the
this.
clothes, right?
Huh?
Clothes.
Yes, they are. They are. So that is all I do.
Yeah.
And
I
if
heard
I'm
somebody say
really,
that
really,
recently.
there was a time I was really, really sick. You know Vicks, right?
Yeah.
Vicks.
You ate it?
No, I didn't eat it.
Oh,
I boiled the hot water.
Put it in
okay.
it.
I put a very thick blanket. Put the water and put the Vicks inside. So the steam started coming into me while I closed myself.
Mhm.
By the time I opened myself, it's like you poured some water on myself. So I do it for 3 days, and that was it. So I teach my children, if you want to go to the hospital, you can go ahead, but this is my remedy.
Oh, that's right.
I think it's always makes sense to try first, as long as it's not dangerous.
What about ginger?
So,
And then my cousin had a cancer. She has an ovarian cancer. That was back home. What we need for, the time that she went to the hospital, it has already gone all the way to her face. So what we do, we ask her, every morning she will have a lemon, 3 lemons. Open the lemons, squeeze it into the cup, drink it, and then you have to get a real coconut oil and take 3 spoons, 3 meal spoons of coconut oil. Guess what? She went to the hospital. They have already told her the cancer has already emerged, yet it's really, really small now that they can take it out, but they have to take her uterus. But before they cannot do it because it's all over her. The doctor told her, whatever you are doing, keep doing it. She is still there doing it and the thing is still going. But if I tell somebody here and say, go and drink lemon and coconut oil for cancer, they will just laugh at me.
No, I believe you. I trust me.
So that is what she's been doing. And in the morning, she will eat carrot and apple. Those are the 2 things that was recommended after the lemon. But the lemon is first thing in the morning before she eats anything. She will drink it and then take, every day I get hold of her and ask, because she was bleeding every single day. If the bleeding started, nobody can control it. But by the time she started doing that, she said the minute she did it, not up to a week, the bleeding stops, and up till now is more than 5 months, the bleeding hasn't come back. And she is still very, very okay now. She can do everything, but before she has been crying that she has a time limit to die.
Wow. Wow.
So cultures is very powerful,
Yes.
and tradition too. This is.
That is a very,
Can I borrow that?
yeah. good.
Why not?
Okay.
I'm
A
taking
very
that.
good point.
Yes.
Anybody else have something that they would like to add from their experience or the work that they're doing? And thank you all for coming. I think that this is a subject matter that is going to grow. And I think with TV specials about our genealogy, Gates's.
Good.
I think that we are beginning to appreciate a little bit more all the people that went before us and how difficult it was for them,
Oh, yeah.
regardless of your culture. So there is a social worker that we work with that's going to retire, and she said that after she retired, she's going to a special refugee camp in the Middle East, and it has 600,000 Syrian refugees. And that does sound very overwhelming to me. I said to her, I have a couple basic things, like I like a comfortable bed, and a hot, bath or shower, I just like, it doesn't have to have everything. But the fact of the matter is that many people today are suffering, and it's kind of depressing to think about, but the fact of the matter is we can do our small piece. We have people we can serve in our own family, in our own neighborhood, and for the VNA community services. And that can be a way that we can help and still get home and have the hot shower bath and clean linens with no bugs. When we used to go to Maine, I used to always lift everything to take a look, make sure there wasn't a spider or something in the bathtub.
But in certain cultures, bed bugs are very common, it doesn't bother them at all. So, yeah, there's many
Yes.
cultures in Europe that bed bugs are like nothing, they were
I used to it.
it's not like America. Bed bugs are a part of culture, they
So
don't,
they
they
get
don't
bit
get,
up, they just
they
comfortable with
treat
it.
themselves, but they don't get all freaked out by it. America's much different that way.
Like
To
ringworm.
follow up on Elizabeth Ann Hofstad's comments about tradition, Elizabeth brought up a really good point. Culture is culture, and traditions are passed down. But each generation, those traditions change. So your culture does change. So that's the interesting thing too. You're not locked into a culture. You have a culture that over the years, traditions have changed, which evolve your culture. And in this country, we're such a multicultural country. We've had so many people from so many countries, my lineage included, and everybody in this room probably. There's been so many different cultures that have become part of our culture. So the key is the acceptance, the lack of defensiveness from a culture that's not our own, the embracing of the knowledge and the enhancement in your life another culture can bring. Within our work, it can be difficult because there's traditions that can be difficult, like we have clients that you don't wear shoes in their house. So we've had workers say, I'm not taking off my shoes, and it starts a whole kind of defensive engagement when we have to explain to the client that in your home you may do that, but our workers are not permitted to work without shoes. It's a safety hazard. There are things that they don't understand. So realize it's not prejudice per se, it's traditions.
Yeah.
Traditions are different for different cultures. And we have so many different cultures in this country. I mean, you look back to just 100 years ago, what has happened? There wasn't antibiotics. There were people coming from all different countries into this country and has made what we are now. So, we are all part of this culture, and you included, Janelle.
I do have a culture after all.
Look, my daughter joined the military, so from the beginning I told her, I'm like, in my culture and tradition, I told her that we are not used to doing that. You cannot be in the military. Okay, no, I'm coming out as a second lieutenant. I said, that is not my problem. My problem is you want to become an army here. You may not get somebody to marry you. And then you may not get somebody here that will marry you. You remember, I just want you to remember, She said, no, 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 no. I said, okay. So I let it go. On the process, she goes to CCP. I wanted to share something with you here. So she has a professor who really, really supported her. So she will get all the students, international students, they will put everything together like book bags and books and other things like that. She will take it all the way to the villages. I have the video here. NBC News took her, and then she traveled 26 hours from here to go and deliver, and it's the military that paid it. She went and delivered all those things last year, and she did it this year also.
Wow.
On TV, she is here like 2 years in a row. She's been doing that. I told her every time, but what she told the military is that this is my culture and tradition. If you can allow me to stay on it, I have no problem with it. She has only one person who gave her problem about that, but the problem is now solved. She is doing her trainings and the rest of them. So in my culture back home, I was not comfortable to tell them that my daughter is in the military in the US. But I have to, because definitely you will see her with uniform, you will see her, and she bragged of it, that okay, I'm in the US Army, and so on and so forth. But it's not everybody that accepted it because of the strong, at least, religion background that we have. You cannot leave your hair open, you can, so every time she is every time she's in the public or anywhere, she has to have her head covered. She went to Kentucky for training for like 6 weeks in the bushes. I'm like, how do you pray? She's like, well, I tell them when it's time, they call me and tell me. And she said she can't eat anything other than halal food. So they make sure that they cook her own food or they give her whatever is halal when the time to eat comes. Then that's she's in Westchester University. She's also going to graduate next year with her master's in social work. So tradition and culture is something that, is really, really very, very effective in people's lives.
Yeah. Well, I really have appreciated the sharing time, and I hope everyone else, when they get to see the DVD, will, learn from it as well. So thank you very much. Now, we always have some